into
It
play.
says starting event.
Okay.
All right, you're live now.
Okay. Don't see it. Hey folks, welcome to the webinar. If
Rick says hello.
Sorry?
Rick says hello. So hello to everyone
great.
and to Rick too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys can hear us okay, let us know in the chat. And nobody's chatting, so let's make sure we can hear folks. Okay, Francisco can hear us. Greg, crystal clear. You guys can hear the music, right? Okay, wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to get started shortly. Just waiting to see if folks come in. All right, guess where the sound's coming from? Does anybody know?
Oh, you stopped the whiteboard.
Yeah. Well, we need to get back to the video.
Yeah.
Can you play that
if you
video?
face a problem, I can. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So
And
the video is live.
Yeah. Hit the play button there. Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yes.
So this is coming from an event in Sweden, 2015, that used JackTrip. And this was because Telia, the state PTT in Sweden, wanted to demonstrate the quality of their network. So these folks are all over Sweden. And the quality was even astounding to the sound engineers. The amazing thing is, if you listen to the sound, this was recorded by a microphone in the auditorium in the concert hall. So it's pretty cool what JackTrip can do. So anyway, why don't you go ahead, Subhajit? We'll pause the video, tell folks where they can watch it longer time outside of here. Go ahead and stop it.
Oh,
and we
yeah,
can
sure.
start the first page of the PowerPoint there.
Okay. So I've stopped the video. Yeah.
All right. So great. So hopefully folks saw that. The video sound came through apparently. And why don't we start with that first slide? We'll just introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah, sure. Just give me a second, Steve.
Yeah. Sorry for the delays, folks. The URL, this is the PowerPoint. Oh, actually, I can do it. Never mind, I'll do it. Okay. Sorry, folks. We're scrambling to get this thing up there at the last minute. Sorry, folks. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. And we're seeing the stuff real quick here. Okay. Apologies for the delays, folks. We see the chat stuff coming in.
Actually, this is our first time also. Like, we have tested everything, but at the end moment, everything goes wrong. So just bear with us.
Yeah. First webinar. And
Well, Hugo says, can you send a recording of this webinar? Yes, we are going to follow up, and we're going to send you a link with the total recording and all. So you can check this webinar later. And if you can't upload that, Steve, I can do that for you because I found the file.
Okay, why don't you do that?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. PowerPoint saved it in a different folder. So we were scrambling up until the last minute. While you're doing that, real quick, where's your techies? Well, we're the techies, and we have another techie who's the moderator, and a lot of work here. And this is all in conjunction with some of the folks that are behind JackTrip. So what we're going to talk about on the webinar is some of the solutions for online music collaboration. Hugo, yes, webinar recording will be sent out a few hours after this webinar, after the webinar gets rendered into a video. So you'll get that by email. Hi, Dan from Baltimore. And by the way, if you guys want to see the video, you just search YouTube for Telia Playing a Part, and that's T-E-L-I-A, Playing a Part. Recommend doing that right after the webinar because we'll get lots of questions probably that you'll want to hear. I think the questions that are going to be coming in are going to be valuable to everybody. Okay, do we have the presentation up there?
It says we're uploading.
Oh, Lord. Sorry, folks. Yeah, we were going to get this ready about 5 minutes beforehand, and then we just wanted to test some things. Any other
Richard
questions?
says, just in, did I miss much? No, Richard, you haven't missed anything. We just introduced ourselves.
Yeah, the name of the video, if you search Google, Telia Playing a Part, T-E-L-I-A, Playing a Part.
Steve, I have an idea. I have an idea. The slide is uploading for like ever. So why don't you do a screen share?
Okay.
And
Well,
play.
I'll upload the slide because this is one of the interesting things about.
Well, that slide you saved is on POTX format, which is not supported by Webinar Jam. So you have to
there we
save
go.
it as a PPTX.
There we go. We'll get there, folks. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Thanks,
I love technology.
Yeah.
There we go. Me and my POTX. That's why it didn't show up. Okay, it should upload quickly on my side. Oh, great. They're processing the presentation too. I see what we're talking about with the screen share. The only thing
Hastings has an interesting question.
Okay, do you want me to take that, Subhajit, or do you want to?
No, I can do that if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So she's asking, or he's asking, while waiting, can you tell us about the concept behind your private servers? So main concept behind the private servers is just because we all know about the pandemic and no one is going out and no one will be able to jam with their fellow musicians for a pretty long time now. So the private servers we are offering, through that we can, or every musicians and all the music lovers out there can jam with their partners from home, and they can feel like they're actually jamming together without any latency and delay. So that's the main goal of our private servers. And then now Steve will take over.
Okay. I got a thing that said stop and start on my side. Does everybody still have the video where they can see the slides that we just put up? Just give me a yes or a no. Mine went back to something strange.
I can see the slide, the first slide, Steve.
Okay. I just want to make sure the viewers can see it. Yes, great.
Yes.
Thanks, Richard, Deanna. Okay, so let's go ahead. One other thing about the concept behind the private servers is it's kind of important. JackTrip, and in the instance of that video we just showed you from 2015, you have to have a web of connections that takes a while to set up between each musician to each other. So the servers actually solve that need of having the connections between each musician, and even more importantly, the servers that we offer prevent the need for firewall holes to configure a firewall to accept all these incoming connections from each other. So, and Corinne, yeah, everybody has to have the program, and you'll find out more about how that works, but it is a client program that you have to download, and we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so let's go ahead. Oh, just about us. I've been running Online Impact Group for, let's see, since 2003. We were very lucky to have been involved in Jamlink from way back. The software's actually been around a long time, well-established, open source, used by professional musicians. It does take some getting used to, or rather, complexities where you have to get used to starting it on a command line and stuff like that. So we'll go over that a little bit. Oh, and Derek, Raspberry Pis, we'll be talking about that shortly as well. Subhajit's been working with us for how many years? 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I'm going to complete 4 years on September.
Great, great. So he's also part of a lot of the important aspects behind the JackTrip servers, and the just the technology behind it is quite amazing, because we've got so much stuff to create them instantly within minutes for anybody that wants.
Before you start over, Steve, I want to say one thing to all the people like Derek, Coring, and all the people who are having a lot of questions in their mind right now. I want to say that we are actually going to have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar, or not the end of the webinar, after we're done talking. So at that moment, I think you're going to have a lot of more questions what you have right now. So then you can ask all of them to us. Okay. So
yeah.
Now, Steve, you can begin.
Yeah, and that's important. We want to make this thing as informative as possible. It's not a sales presentation about our JackTrip servers. It is designed to get lots of people to get a frame of reference, and it'll help us understand what kind of questions people have. Okay, so this is kind of what I just said, but basically Skype and Zoom, you all probably know that it just don't work. I mean, you can get latency that just is too much for musicians, but it's not necessarily noticeable if you're talking and having a conversation. We're going to sort of describe JackTrip and JackTrip servers, and then the main thing that Subhajit just mentioned is answering questions, people's questions here, and hopefully be helpful. There's several solutions for online collaboration, jamming, teaching. Some of them are easier to use, but they have the drawbacks of lower quality audio and maybe more latency. We have a method that allows you to test very affordably whether JackTrip is the right solution for you in terms of how it works with your network, because JackTrip does require some good networks. Going through challenges musicians and teachers face right now, and you all know that, I'm sure, but we'd love to get your feedback. And then we'll just ask you if folks can just type in the chat what industry or what they do. Are you educator? Are you musician? Are you audio engineer? That kind of thing. We'll go over, why isn't there something already out there that makes this super simple? What are the current solutions and where to find them? How our JackTrip servers play a role in simplifying everything. How to find out if the JackTrip server solution is going to work for you. And then most importantly, the questions and answers. So one thing to keep in mind, internet audio is complex, and that's in big part because of, the huge amounts of data it takes to send high quality audio through the internet, and the variations in internet connections that people have. So in the video that we showed at the beginning, they were using a dedicated optical fiber coming into the concert hall, and that supported both video and audio. Now, most people aren't going to have a 2 gigabit fiber coming into the home, so this is where you need to test JackTrip between you and your partner musicians. And we'll do upcoming workshops to answer questions about people's maybe specific technical questions and more details. All right. Anyway, folks already mentioned what industry they're in. That we'll get into that in a second. Hang on. Yeah, challenges. I think urgency is a big one for a lot of folks that are educators. School's going to start in lockdown scenario, in weeks, right? Colleges, universities, high schools, K through 12, junior high. So we've been working really fast on all this stuff with that in mind. Skype and Zoom obviously don't work. It works if you're just listening to somebody and maybe you're a teacher and you want to listen, but if you want to play a duet with a student, that's not going to work. And you may know that 30 milliseconds is a good maximum for what musicians can tolerate before the tempo starts degrading and people can't stay in sync. Musicians keep trying to slow down because they think the other person is getting slower, and then that person thinks you're getting slower and they slow down and everything goes crazy. And there's lots of information. Some people will even say 25 milliseconds. It oftentimes depends on things like beats per minute. So if you have a slower beats per minute, sometimes you can tolerate 50 milliseconds or more. And then the what industry you're in, we got some good feedback already. So feel free to throw those in the chat as you go forward. See a drummer, yeah. There was a demo years back, drummer in LA talking to working with a musician in Marin County, so 300 miles, I think, 350 miles. So you notice on our website that we put 250 miles as a good radius, but it's still worth checking. We're trying to make sure that it's not something that people expect it to go 300 or 400 or 500, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. It's worth checking. Okay. And then the reason there isn't an easy to use solution already, this is a little bit more than you'd want to see on a PowerPoint slide, but just to go quickly, the internet wasn't designed for musician level latency. It wasn't designed to move data with a latency of 30 milliseconds, and that's just because of things like routers in the middle of your internet service provider, and then how they send the traffic to another internet service provider through their routers. Oftentimes you have packets that get sent different paths at different times, so some of the data actually comes in later after the data that was sent before it or after it, rather. Compression, big deal. Compression, which probably everybody knows, reduces the sound quality, hopefully not by much, but that compression takes time to compress. It takes time to compress audio, and that adds to the latency. And that can be 50 or 100 milliseconds just to compress audio. That's the codecs that I'm talking about in the third bullet there. So coder decoder, but that's the name of the software that has to do the compression, and that's built into Zoom and Skype and other ones, GoToMeeting and things like that. So, and then the internet infrastructure I mentioned, and jitter is a big one. You'll notice on our network tests that there's a jitter reading, jitter measurement. Jitter is a variation from the norm of data packets coming in to the endpoint, later or sooner than the average. So jitter can cause the need for a jitter buffer to be bigger or smaller. And a jitter buffer just means it's saving up packets to accommodate that difference in timing between different packets and then letting them through to the other end. And that buffer ends up having to use up some number of milliseconds. And with JackTrip, you can alter the buffer depending on your network connection and make that buffer really small. Speed of light, big limitation, right? So speed of light is 300 million meters per second, or what, 186,000 miles per second. That, believe it or not, adds enough milliseconds if you're going a long distance that it can be a problem. So that's another reason we have this 250-mile radius, but again, you can try it with 500 or more miles. And for those outside, that's about 400 kilometers, equal to 50 miles outside the system that we use in the United States. Now, the interesting thing is optical fiber runs at 66% of the speed of light, so it goes even slower. So adds more milliseconds. And then at each end of a connection, musicians have to have a USB audio interface. You may or may not know, but a lot of you probably have this stuff if you're used to connecting your music over the internet. This one happens to be an M audio, but there's several that people use commonly with JackTrip. PreSonus is a big one. Focusrite, Scarlett. So let's go to the next slide here. I think, oh, the second item, the reason there isn't an already to use solution is the audio quality. And so with some of the options out there, the compression and everything reduces the audio quality. So frequency response is not even equal to what you would get on a DVD recording, 48 kilohertz, 16 bits. And so the amount of data that it takes to flow is just huge. And so that right away means that there's a lot of variability between people who have slower networks or networks through internet providers that don't care as much about the performance, like the jitter and stuff like that. In general, though, the internet wasn't designed for huge amounts of data from one source, incoming or outgoing. The other thing is that home routers and the routers that are out there inside the internet service providers sometimes are allergic to huge amounts of data. So if you want to see examples of the differences in sound quality between Zoom, Skype, and JackTrip compared to a original.
Steve, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
People are complaining that they lost sound and now the visual is frozen, they're saying.
Oh, okay. Let's see if Satoshi, we want to know if it's on our side, my side. So let's get some other feedback here. I'm glad you saw that. Audio and video are done on your end. Resolved for Chris. Okay. Hopefully temporarily. Let's get a couple of other feedback. Sound and visual, no problem. Great. Okay. Apologize.
Okay.
Interesting. So this could be a server issue on the provider here, because I've got perfect stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Southeast Virginia. Good. Okay. Anyway, feel free to go to musicianstogetherapart.com, click on listen, put some headphones on, and you'll see the difference. And you'll see a picture from Audacity showing the latency as well, the latency difference. What are the current solutions? This is what we want folks to sort of take away. So JackTrip, obviously, and these are the places you can go to look for it and get more information. JackTrip is open source out of Stanford University at their Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. Jamulus, another good one, llcon.sourceforge.net, or just search Jamulus. That one's had a lot of recent updates, so not bad. Does use compression, so the sound quality is sometimes not what people want. So if you're doing recording or rehearsing where you really need to hear the full spectrum of sound, that's good. NinJam, another one, and JamKazam. Haven't seen what JamKazam is doing lately, but they're getting ready to do some great stuff from what I understand. So that's another one worth paying attention to. But of all these, we know that JackTrip is used by a lot of musicians who really need the low latency and the high quality, like DVD quality audio. And anyway, in all these solutions, you need that USB audio interface. Okay, and so these are like a minimum of $100. Okay, so that can be a stumbling block for some people. It turns out that if you do have a Macintosh, that and you just plug in a phone headset in there, it will work. So if that's something where a singer can just use something going into the the 1/8 inch or 3.5 mm jack, you can actually use a Macintosh that way. But if you want the real good audio, the 48 kilohertz stuff with a connection to audio equipment or your mic system, that's good. That's where the audio interface comes into play. Jamulus, okay, it's got servers that everybody connects to, and it's pretty easy. But they have all these public servers, and so you'd want to have a private Jamulus server. One local community college has set up a private Jamulus server, and they're going to have their students go to that. The issue there is you still are facing firewall configs and potential involvement of IT folks if you're on a campus or someplace where you need to have this always running machine that's always going to be there. You don't want any surprises if you're teaching a class or in a jam session or a recording session or whatever, or a scheduled rehearsal. JackTrip, we put the servers out there to make JackTrip much more accessible without needing to have an IT person, believe it or not. However, you'll notice that we only have 11 cities right now with JackTrip running, JackTrip servers. You can go a little further than the 250-mile radius, probably, if you have to test it. But there's two other options. One is the very expensive option that has a couple more $100 a month, believe it or not, that gives locations in about 20 different cities worldwide. But the other solution, believe it or not, and people are thinking about this, and people have done this. SoundJack. Sorry, Diane. Yeah. That's another one. And this isn't necessarily the full list, by the way. But the other option for JackTrip servers, and people have done this, is a server, on your own campus or in your IT department or whatever, and that is doable. We can provide consulting for that if needed. But it's all doable. And if you have some real good techies, they can just do it through the open source software and the instructions on that. You'd want to run a Linux system, Ubuntu or Fedora for that. And we do consulting on that. All right, for whatever choice you are using, Jamulus, JackTrip, whatever, you have to sort of get used to settings that some people may or may not be used to. Probably a lot of folks that use digital audio workstations or recording are used to some of these settings, but frames per period, and then packet buffers get into play when you're on the internet, and that's for handling the jitter variation and how slow or fast the packets come in compared to the average. These packet buffers, frames per period, are extremely important with internet audio, and you may end up having to have a little more latency, sometimes a lot more latency, if you're using a 4G LTE connection, let's say, and we totally don't recommend that, but sometimes that's all people have. Wi-Fi, we don't recommend Wi-Fi, but it's doable. I've had good luck with it. And then watch out for gamers at home. That can be really using up your connection. So can Dropbox and Google Sync and things like that. All right. User experience, a really important thing. So you probably want to look at all of the solutions and compare the benefits of JackTrip and the audio quality and the low latency with the usability. And by that, I mean that you have to sort of just learn some of the things that go along with using JackTrip, which is just typing a command into a terminal window on your computer. And so Jamulus simplifies that a lot, but again, some musicians, prefer not to have the compression that Jamulus uses. But once you get used to JackTrip, folks that really need that low latency and high quality audio, get used to it, and it works. So the user experience, one of the reasons we offer a test plan at a minimum price of $15 per month, and you can stop it after a month, obviously. The goal there is to fully evaluate it. We would have loved to do it for free, but believe it or not, we have to set up an actual server per person, per user. But if you do get a test server built up, which is instant, you can share that and just have a musician partner of yours test with that test server, and it's a loop back, and they can just hear how their audio quality sounds and try fine-tuning the things like the frames per period and packet buffer. All right, JackTrip works best on Mac and Linux. Raspberry Pi, okay, that's the little thing like this. We have a partner called Network Sound that is, and I'm calling this a micro PC, but Network Sound is offering these pre-built with JackTrip, and very easy. You just configure it for whichever server you want to use. So that's the Raspberry Pi. I advise using the Raspberry Pi option instead of Windows, because Windows was working great until the July 14th, 2020 update. And then what happened is Windows started having major issues where it wouldn't function right unless you have a frames per period setting of 512. So if anybody knows what that is, that causes lots of latency. It's just too much delay. So Mac is great. You can go down to 32 frames per period. And if you want to see what that looks like in latency, go to our website and click on the listen page. Lots more information to cover beyond what I've just covered. So we want to reserve this time for folks to ask questions, and that helps us know what to talk about on a upcoming webinar. Our next one will be Wednesday. If you don't have questions, or even if you do, before the time is up, because we have about 27 more minutes, we'll be able to play some videos about how JackTrip can be installed on a Macintosh, and it's pretty easy, and then how easy it is to set up a server. So you'd want to do both of these with a test server, for instance, to see if if you have the good audio and tweak it. And again, it's really important to do that audio test in addition to the network test on our website, because the only way you can know, if it really works with your network is to try it with audio, not just measuring ping time and jitter. The one thing you will want to check on our network test, though, is the speed. So that's a big part, that if you have less than 5 megabits per second, which most people do nowadays, then
okay,
that's
we are actually having questions coming through.
Yeah, great. Okay, Q&A time. So why don't we go over, let's go over the questions that are there now, and then folks, go ahead and put more questions in there as you have them, and then when we run out of questions, we'll play the video demo of loading in there. Okay, real quick, which cities have JackTrip? And I think Diane mentioned that, the U.S. cities, and then there's a bunch of them outside the U.S. as well. Allison, common problem with the JackTrip, even without an audio interface. That's great, but the digital screechy stuff that you're talking about is exactly why you need to, or we recommend a lot of the fine-tuning stuff. And then, depending on where you connect to, you want to do it to one of our servers to test. And again, that's just not because we're trying to make money off of that. It's just because there's so much important information you get when you're actually using audio. Okay, let's see. How many school musicians could connect to your server? Okay, our servers right now are configured for 2 and 4 simultaneous musicians. That doesn't mean you have to restrict it to those musicians. So if you're a music teacher, it just means you could do a one-on-one teaching with any of your students. And that starts at $45 a month. 4 musicians, $120 a month. And believe it or not, this is as low as we could go just because of the technology involved. However, for 5 or more musicians, it's all doable. And we just have to configure more powerful servers. So not a problem. There are people doing 32 right now, but as you get bigger and bigger, then you do have a risk, or you have to worry about the data coming into the server and whether there's enough, bandwidth for all the people going in there. And one of the ways to handle that is you don't do stereo or 2-channel. You can just have everybody use 1 channel. Does each musician in a session have to have a server? No. Each person in the session just would connect to that one server. And again, we recommend each musician having a test against a test server, which you just buy one of, and then they could do a loopback test and you could hear how it works. Francisco, no, it's actually not per user, it's not per computer. So it is hard to explain all that on our website. So we're trying to get better on that, but good question. A lot of people wonder about the costs and stuff. So one server handles any separate group of musicians as long as there's, 2 or 4 at a time. Could be any 4 people, but it's the monthly cost, let's say for the 2-person server, $45 is just a monthly cost for that. And it doesn't matter if you have 5 people, with different computers. It's just priced based on how many people at one time. So hopefully that answers the question. So we have it priced right now online where you can easily purchase a 2-person or a 4-person server. So that theoretically covers, one-on-one teaching and small bands. But again, the one-on-one teaching just means 1 server, and then each student would have the JackTrip software.
Nick Costa is asking, is it $120 per musicians, or does that cover the whole band? It actually covers the whole band, $120 for 4 musicians. They just need to have the JackTrip software, as just Steve said. And only one have to buy the server, and the others will connect to the server IP or the subdomain we are going to provide.
Yeah. So summary, $120 a month, 4 musicians at a time. And it could be different musicians at different times. What does it take to set up a JackTrip server? You want to say that one, Subhajit?
Oh, yeah, sure. So actually, you need to purchase the subscription from our website, musicianstogetherapart.com. And apart from that subscription, you need to have a Mac or Raspberry Pi at your home. And you need to have a good audio interface, USB audio interface system, as we have already talked about that in this webinar. It's kind of M audio and all of these USB audio interfaces. And that's just it. You have to connect to our server using that USB audio interface, and you can jam together. That's it.
Yeah. And then I think there were some questions about about setting up a server. So 1 person in Sarasota. We do that by custom quotations, since Florida would be probably too far away from either Dallas or New York.
Steve, can I join in 2 minutes?
Yeah. So I'll keep running with the questions. So actually Atlanta would be coming online, so that might be one to test with Florida, just in case it's sufficient. But yeah, so we would do a custom quote, and it really depends on talking with folks about their specific needs. We actually can't afford to do that for free, unfortunately. So what we offer is as low a cost as we can for a 30-minute consult, and that's the $75 deal on our website, and we just schedule it whatever time you need, and it would be a Zoom call. But the things that get configured that we're talking about, if you need a server on site or in a campus data center, something like that, We're talking about what kind of hardware and who's going to configure the firewalls. Some universities and other organizations have just insane firewall rules. Then you have to go through through many layers of approval and stuff like that. So we can help with that, obviously. We can help you with any of that stuff. If you need a 32-person type of server, we can recommend that. So the best way to start on that is just a 30-minute consultation. If you are educational institution, we can help with the discount on that. But we've got the prices, believe it or not, rock bottom for what it takes to get all this stuff done. Diane, mixing audio in JackTrip, and the mix is all done at the server. So it's sort of a one-to-one mix. So you have everybody or nobody. If you do need mixing, that's more custom consulting stuff where we would show you how to do a peer-to-peer connection web between all the musicians and a mixer or something on the output. And believe it or not, you could have 8 channels coming through JackTrip. That's all doable. It's just a configuration. But the person receiving, let's say you're having somebody receiving all the data there. Actually, each musician, when you do the peer-to-peer stuff, has to have the bandwidth to support each musician coming in and out. So if you have 4 musicians and you do the peer-to-peer thing, which we don't recommend, that means you'd have to have 4 times, let's say 5 megabits or something like that. Candace, yeah, Jam Kazam, good result. That's good. Why would you change to JackTrip? The benefit of JackTrip is mainly the latency and the 48 kilohertz 16-bit DVD audio. But yeah, good to hear it's working for you. For a group of 32 plus, are they finding it's working for a band that size? Is there a subscription also 150 or more for 5+ people? Yeah, so that's a custom thing, and we have to be real careful in that case. So that's why there's custom consulting involved, because you could really run into a mess if you're planning on a school choir and everybody's at home with different network types, and maybe some of them only have a smartphone connection. So Bob, the 75 consult, just go to the pricing page and click on buy now, and you'll get to our e-commerce portal, and that's one of the options there. Chris, yeah, I don't have a good answer on that one, but if somebody, we do have 2 options on there, right? So one is each musician hears each other musician, or we can do it where each musician, no, excuse me. The option is full mix where each musician hears themselves plus all the other musicians connected at the time. And then you can also just turn off the loop back of yourself and listen locally, with your USB interface, if it, for instance, allows you to mix local plus remote. So that's very doable. And that's just a setting in our dashboard. Derek, virtual concerts. What personnel would you need from a technical standpoint? Yeah, you would need, if it was yeah, I would say you're just right on target. Networking and IT expert, audio engineer. Probably an audio engineer only could get you going. Yeah, just with our servers, there's a lot less technical stuff needed, especially with regard to firewall configurations. Subhajit, are there any other questions that I may have missed?
Bob asks, where is it on website? $75, great price.
Yeah.
Bob, you have to go to the pricing page maybe on the website to check the current pricing we have. And also you can sign up directly from that page. Like it will go to our storefront.
Yeah. Steve Benson, What about simultaneous video? Very good question, and apologies for not mentioning that. So JackTrip obviously doesn't include the video, otherwise it would be a mess, because video ends up having to be compressed, and you'll never be able to get video that exactly matches the that exactly matches the audio. And interesting thing about the video, we started with the compression caused variances in the video compared to the audio, very little, but the conductor was going nuts and he couldn't look at the screens. I know there was more to that question. So simultaneous video, what people do, okay, is just use Zoom with the audio off, or even Skype with the audio off for the video. You do have to be careful of two things. One is just the competition from Zoom versus the audio. So it's another thing where you got to test it and see if your network connection at home supports it. And then, but plenty of people do this, by the way, with Zoom. The other issue just is, so you have the competition with the video and audio, and then there was one other thought that I had. Anyway, that's that's the main thing. People use Zoom. Oh, the other thing is just being careful that if you have a Macintosh and certain settings are for your USB sound card, you want to just make sure that when you start Zoom, it doesn't take control of your audio and prevent the JackTrip audio from going through. Okay, Derek. Oh, and then Patrick. So Derek asked if there's any support. Yeah, there's support available. We're trying to do it where you don't need too much support. That's our main goal, because it could get painful if people had to pay for support. However, we offer that as needed, and that's another, you can buy either a retainer or a one-time 2 hours, and that's all on our pricing page, and you can just go and purchase it. Patrick, options for people outside the range. Western Canada, interesting. Was just looking at that earlier today. Let's see, the solution right now is in Toronto, and the closest we would be able to do at this point would be two choices: Montreal and Oregon, USA, neither of which is that good for Western Canada. But it's the problem with the Oregon one is that's going to be hundreds of dollars a month, because that has to be hosted on a different server. So we're getting some more questions here, and then we want to just show maybe a little bit of the JackTrip installation process on a Mac, maybe in the last 5 minutes. We got about 13 minutes left. JackTrip, excuse me, with Pro Tools. Don't have a good answer for that, because I don't want to commit to say yes, but people are using it with Ableton Live. Yes, Paul, advantages to using our servers is strictly because it's easier for folks that don't have the IT support or don't want to do that. So our servers, the other advantages, you boot them up in about 5 to 8 minutes. But yeah, if you don't mind having your server there and maintaining it and keeping it going, that's great. And all the information is available at the Stanford URL that I put in there on how to implement that. There are a lot of glitches and things that it takes, and you got to sort of be familiar with Linux. The other thing, the advantage on our servers is they're up 24/7, on a high availability cloud-based server platform. So that's probably one of the main advantages, just to make it scalable and hands-off, so that we don't, people need minimal support from us, and we can charge as low a cost as possible. But yes, we do provide support for anything and any and all questions. And if we can't, solve your problem, we can at least guide you towards where to look on the internet. YouTube has some great videos from JackTrip users, by the way. Things like, how to set it up and how to use it on a Macintosh with the terminal or something like, things like that. And then our partner called Network Sound. If you go to networksound.com, and I'll type this in the chat, there's a phone number or an email address that you can connect to. So networksound.com, and that's where you'll find information about the Raspberry Pi option.
Well,
And
Steve,
yeah.
Satoshi is asking an interesting question. She's asking, like, is the audio hardware has to be USB? Mine is on Thunderbolt.
Yeah, and as far as we know, that will work. We just haven't tried it. But the neat thing about Thunderbolt is you will get a lot better latency. You'll reduce the USB latency. It adds a millisecond, and then you can use one of the nicer UA USB audio interfaces, which have a Thunderbolt connectivity. So that's great. And then Allison, I haven't looked at that yet, but folks should look at that probably. All right, why don't we just mention a couple things, and then maybe do you want to play that video of what the Macintosh download and install? This will give folks an idea of what they should do before, maybe trying a test server. But the main thing is, there's so much information here about how to use JackTrip and the types of network gotchas and fine-tuning it. So we're going to do lots of webinars. So the next one is Wednesday, and we'll try to give a bit of a cheat sheet available on that one. But for now, you can always email us, contact@musicianstogetherapart.com. But look for more webinar invites. And do you want to say anything else, Subhajit, before maybe playing that video on the Macintosh install?
Well, actually, I just need to say that all the videos and all the things we are actually mentioning in this webinar will be sent to you after a few hours in the post-webinar email. So if you guys miss anything in the video I'm going to show you, or in the video Steve shown you earlier in this webinar, you can just wait for a couple of hours, and you can get the video link directly in the post-webinar email. That's it.
Right. So go ahead and show that installation video, and then Subhajit will sort of describe as it goes through. And I'm going to
one more thing. This is the video is actually pretty long, guys. So I'm not going to show you the full thing. It will actually, if I show you the full thing, it will actually confuse you. And I'm not going to use. I'm going to actually try to ignore all the technical terms as much as possible, so you guys can understand what the thing is. And so I'm going to starting it. Okay, let's begin.
And by the way, the webinar expires in 7 minutes. So if it ends up running out of time, look for the follow-up email with playback. Yeah. All right, I'm going to mute.
Okay, so this is the video on how to install JackTrip on Macintosh OS. So first, you need to go to the CCRMA website, where you can download the JackTrip software and also the Jack software, which is required to run JackTrip. So the website is ccrma.stanford.edu. You can search that on Google. And you need to download the Jack. The links are pretty clear, and you don't have to go anywhere else. If you just click on there, it will download. The download will start directly. As you can see, the softwares are downloading, and next we have to actually install them. And the video is a bit slow because it's recorded on TeamViewer, so just bear with it. Okay.
And just to add one other thing, the fact that we're able to do this on TeamViewer means that if you have one administrator that knows all this stuff, they can actually just do a TeamViewer session or any remote desktop session to install it on partner musicians' computers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. So now you have to install them. The Jack software, you have to install the Jack software, which is actually QJackCTL after installing. And after that, you need to install JackTrip. So that's the recommended step. First, you need to install the Jack software. Okay, one more thing. As you have the people who are already using Mac knows, I think that Macintosh software doesn't allow the like unknown softwares to install directly. So when you try to install Jack, it's not from directly. It's not. We are not installing directly from the App Store. So you will get this kind of warning that this can't be opened. This from an unidentified developer. So you just go on and click on OK button, and then you have to go to system preferences, security, and privacy. And if you, when you go there, you will see that there is an open anyway button already present for you, specifically for that JackTrip software. And when you click on that open anyway button, you will see it will give you the option to open the software. So from now on, from like after this, it's pretty standard software installation procedure on Mac. You just have to keep on clicking on that continue button, and that's it. So that will install the Jack software. And one more thing, the total of this software, like both the software will actually occupy maximum of 100 MB in your hard drive. So it's not a heavy software at all. It's giving you a warning that you have to restart your system after the installation. You just click on continue installation. Okay, after the reboot of your system, you need to go to you need to install the JackTrip now, and the installation is pretty same. Like click on that continue button after double clicking on the installation package, standard, and yeah, so both the softwares are installed now, as you can see, and now it's time to run the software. Okay, to run the software, you have to run the QJackCTL first, which you can get from the launcher, from the app list in your Mac system. The icon looks like this, like violet icon, which says Jack on it. Okay, so that QJackCTL or Jack looks like this, and you have to click on that setup on the right side, as you can see, that setup icon to set up. What happened, Steve? The video stop. I cannot hear you. You're on mute.
I think we're getting close to the end of the webinar, and so our webinar provider may have done that. But as you saw, what Subhajit showed is there's a QJackCTL setting where you set your frames per period to whatever you want, and we'll cover more of that on Wednesday for folks that want to get an idea of the user interface to see if it's something that is sufficiently easy for your users, and we think it can be. There's videos out there, and we'll put videos up as well that just give an explainer that if you all look at how it works, you'll find that you can get pretty used to it pretty quickly. And I think that's it. So folks, thank you for joining. We are taking emails at contact@musicianstogetherapart. The only caveat there is we're not able to offer technical advice or too many specifics because of the urgency and the nature of the demand right now especially for
Steve,
educators.
why don't you type the email ID in the chat box so people will be able to keep that? Yeah,
that's a good idea. Contact. That means I need to type here at. That's the number 2.
Oh, I can do that if you're having a problem.
I got it. Togetherapart.com. Okay, and we have 30 seconds left. So super thanks, folks. And yeah, great. Thanks for the feedback, folks. means a lot to us. We put in a lot of effort to make this thing scalable and easy, and it's not easy to do this stuff, but we're trying to do it as fast as we can and make it as simple as we can. So bye-bye,
All right.
everybody.
Bye. See you in the
Thank you
next
very
webinar.
much. All right. Bye-bye.